Hello and welcome to the episode of In the Trench with Gang Green. I'm your host, Blair, also known as Bubbs. Today we are joined by a very special guest, DiMari Cooley. DiMari, thanks for coming on, man. Looking forward to getting into the Jets-Cowboys.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Hell, it's a great game. So I'm ready to break it down.
Yep, it's was interesting there for the first half, and obviously Dallas broke away. You walk away as a Jet fan pretty disappointed going into this week at MetLife, which is a must-win game for the Jets against New England, trying to snap the 14 straight losses. But for Dallas, they came out again last week and dominated. Obviously outscored the Jets and the Giants 70-20 in two games. So just to start here, what is your general overview of not only this game for Dallas and what they did well, but also obviously what they were able to do well last week or 2 weeks ago now against the Giants to open up the season?
I think the defense is definitely the strength of that team. Right now, they're connecting on all aspects, all three levels. It's great play defensive wise. So definitely, the defense is going to be what carries the team this year. Offense, um, offense is looking good, but I think they can use some improvement as far as the red zone. The red zone offense, haven't looked too good, the last few weeks. So that's kind of the focal point they should try to focus on, going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think from a Jet standpoint, that was one area where at times the defense struggled all day, but the one area was the red zone and the red zone, especially late in the game where it was kind of became garbage time. But I wanted to just kind of get into the defense. I mean, what did you feel? I mean, do you feel that Micah Parsons is certainly, one of the best? How do you feel Micah Parsons, I should say, word it like this? How do you feel he ranks, amongst the league in terms of edge rushers?
Bias me, I'm going to say he's definitely the best
Best.
edge rusher in all of football right now. Looking at it from the outside, you got guys like T.J. Watt, you got Nick Bosa. He's definitely on that level with those edge rushers. Definitely in person, seeing more of what you can how Dan Quinn kind of uses him. He's so versatile. You can use him anywhere you want on the field. So I feel like that might separate him from the other guys.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he crushed Dwayne Brown, and from a Jets perspective, I mean, it was I don't know why Nathaniel Hackett didn't give him any tight end help much. I mean, he was kind of on an island, and he can move around a little bit, but primarily was from that left side and was stopping the pass and the run. I guess from your perspective, from a Cowboys fan, what do you feel the Jets need to do moving forward with Zach, who I thought for the first three quarters was fine, he was okay, but garbage time, had a lot of interceptions, obviously the three picks. Started to he finished under 50% again, completion percentage, which we've seen too much of, which is something that is got to be fixed if you want to be a successful quarterback in this league. Completion percentage has got to be way higher than below 50. What did you see from him, just from an outside fan perspective, from Zach on Sunday?
I feel like one thing he did pretty well, especially like the last drive before halftime, was stepping up in the pocket and using his legs, which I feel like that is what the Jets need more of for him to be successful, especially with the offensive line not being the best that they can be this early on in the season. But letting him step up in the pocket and create plays with his legs will definitely be what they need for success with Zach Wilson going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I mean, I think he made some of the short stuff look easy, but he also had, he didn't recognize that one pick. He didn't see the safety coming over the top, but he had a couple of those throws where he was able to step in the pocket. I would like to see them utilize his legs, a lot more. Shifting back over to the Cowboys, kind of just bounce back and forth here. But what was your impressions from Dak this game? Didn't have to do a whole lot in the Giants game. They were able to run the ball a whole lot. They were up 26-0 going to halftime. Second half was a lot of just juicing the clock. This game, a little bit different. They went into halftime. It was still a game, only an 8-point lead. What were your thoughts on Dak's performance? And I mean, he was getting the ball to CeeDee Lamb. It seemed like every third down, CeeDee Lamb was wide open. And I don't know why the Jets didn't have Sauce move around, but we'll get into that here a little bit later on. But your thoughts on Dak?
I'm liking what I'm seeing from Dak these first two games. It's a big difference compared to last year to what we're seeing now. He's not forced to throw into tight windows. Receivers are getting open. He's being patient. He's going through all his progressions instead of, if I have to throw the curl route on third down, I'm going to throw the curl route on third down. So he's really just taking his time and analyzing the entire field, which I feel like is what's helping him this year compared to last year. He was trying to make the big play, the explosion. But now he's just letting the game come to him, moving the ball down the field and just taking what the defense gives him.
Yeah, I feel like just from an outside perspective, I felt like last year was a little bit of I guess just kind of a rarity for him to have those 15 interceptions, obviously tied for last. Do you feel that was kind of just a 1 year thing and he's not that type of turnover plagued quarterback that we've obviously seen from a handful of other guys? Do you feel that was kind of just a 1 year thing and this year he's back to being the guy he was prior to last year?
Absolutely, it was 1 year. 1 year last year, he had some unfortunate drops and some tip balls, maybe 5 or 6 that resulted in interceptions. But if we're talking about how Dak is career wise, let's look back at 2021, where he finished 37 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. That's who Dak is. So last year, yeah, is an outlier kind of in his performance. But what I like to often tell people, if we look at last year, Dak and like last year's Cowboys team, despite the turnover problem, as we say, that
Yeah.
team was still fighting for first place at a point in time in the season. And later on, like against San Francisco, where we saw the lack of weapons is kind of what hurt Dak and hurt our offense. But as far as this year, like I said, I'm like what I'm seeing out of Dak right now. And definitely moving forward, I feel like as he gets more comfortable, Cooks in the offense, Michael Gallup gets more involved, we're going to see that more of like 2021 Dak prior to last year.
Yeah, and also obviously last year, I mean, he started out with that injury where Cooper Rush had to play, and that could have played a little bit of a role into it. But moving on to the receivers, I mean, CeeDee Lamb had a huge game, 11 catches, 143 yards, and I guess kind of this could be utilized as like a two-part question here. My first reaction is the Jets. I mean, third down, they could not get off the field. I think the Cowboys finished 9 of 18, I believe it was, which they were 1 of 6, I think, late. So when it turned into garbage time, they started to mail it in a little bit, and the numbers started to drop. But I mean, CeeDee Lamb every third down. I mean, there were so many third down and longs where he was able to convert, and the Jets defense just couldn't get off the field. Your thoughts on his performance? Because it seemed like the Jets had no game plan, did not prepare at all for him. And do you feel, just from an outside perspective, that Sauce, who the Jets like to keep just on one side and don't travel, do you feel he should travel with the opposing team's number one? Because he did a good job against Lamb when he was lined up against him, but everybody else, when they were kind of playing the soft zone against CeeDee Lamb, he was open every play. Do you feel that?
To touch on your first part, I feel like CeeDee Lamb is slowly like climbing amongst the ranks as one of the best receivers in the NFL. He's what they like to call quarterback friendly, where third
Yeah.
down, we need a play. I'm going to get open for you, and we're going to extend the drive. So I'm definitely liking what I'm seeing out of Lamb, especially going back to last year. We talk about his production, and Dak missed a few games. So to see where Lamb was last year from the time Dak wasn't playing until he came back, going into this season, he's definitely becoming one of the best receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, without a
And that's
doubt.
exactly why Sauce Gardner should follow him and follow other receivers going
Yeah.
forward, because Sauce Gardner is one of the best corners in the league. Like without a doubt, just the size, the length, the speed, as you can see one play earlier in the game where he almost, picked off of out
Yeah.
route and took it back for a touchdown. So which came back to hurt the Jets. But Sauce definitely should be able to follow guys all over the field. I know he has the ability to do it, but also because with DJ Reed on the other side, you don't really have a weakness in that Jet secondary. So I feel
Oh,
like
yeah,
that's another
definitely.
thing, moving forward. Like when you play these tougher opponents, you get Stephon Diggs twice a year, you get
Yep.
Waddle and Hill twice a year. You have to put Sauce Gardner on the best receiver, and that is the best way to get that Jets defense rolling and get guys off the field.
Yeah, definitely. And especially like you were spot on. I mean, the secondary is one of the strengths of this team, and the Sauce pick was just, it was one of those. It was a great play for him to jump the route and at least get a deflection
Mm-hmm.
off of that. But that's an easy pick six, and instead of it being a 10-7 game, you're looking at a 14-10 game, and who knows what happens after that. I mean, there was a couple plays I think in this game that certainly changed it. You go back to late. I think if the Jets were able to score a touchdown before the half, it was a good drive, but if Zach didn't get his arm hit and he was able to hit Garrett Wilson in the corner of the end zone, that could have changed some things. And then obviously the Sauce pick was huge. But yeah, I would like to see him travel. I mean, you see a lot of these other corners, they're traveling with guys, and you could trust DJ Reed up against whoever the numbers 2 is. But Sauce deserves that chance, and they could not get off the field. And you just question the in-game adjustments. Where were they? I mean, I'm sure you would agree with this. The Cowboys completely outcoached the Jets in this game, both offensively and defensively. Would you agree with that assessment? I mean, Hackett wasn't any good, and I didn't think Ulbrich and Salah. I thought as a whole they weren't able to make many adjustments, both offensively, defensively. Did you feel that way too from a Cowboys perspective?
100%. After the half, we saw Dan Quinn kind of switch up what he was running, and he went more of a five defensive back look. There's a point in time where you had Gilmore and Diggs in, and you had Hooker and Kurtz, and they threw Jordan Lewis in or Deron Bland in, kind of to limit Zach Wilson, because if they use him as a spy, those type of guys can cover, and they also can have speed, and they're also very good in the box. So I feel like the Jets definitely were outcoached, especially come second half, even though, the game was kind of out of hand at that point. But Hackett still should have threw in some things maybe to get some good looks offensively and defensively that he can use going into next week.
Yeah, I would have loved to see them. They only ran, I think, I saw a number earlier today. It was something with they only ran 12 personnel. It wasn't much. And in last week, where we had success against the Bills, we even saw a little bit of 13 personnel where they ran 3 tight end sets. And Ruckert's been great as a blocking tight end, but they didn't utilize him a ton. So that was certainly something, as you mentioned, Hackett has to work on going into this week, because from a Jet perspective, you're going up against a team in New England that's got Matthew Judon, and he can move all around. And he's not the same level as Parsons, obviously, but he is still a very talented pass rusher who's got 2 sacks in as many games. Just, quickly from a Cowboys perspective, before we hit on some other points on defense and then wrap things up, your expectations going into this game against the Cardinals, which I laugh because it's a 12-point spread, and the Cardinals obviously are pretty much a dumpster fire. Are you expecting a big blowout there for the Cowboys? Obviously, I mean, they're the best team through 2 weeks in the NFL.
I am, but I'm not counting on it, because any given Sunday, anything can possibly happen. And Dallas is known, throughout the years to play down to their competition. A few games last year, you go to Minnesota and you go to Philly and you hang 40 points on them. And then you play Washington last week of the season and you look like you're still in preseason mode with your rookies. So I'm expecting a blowout, but I'm not going to put nothing past Arizona, because the first half, they looked very good against the Giants. If that Arizona team comes out against Dallas on Sunday, there's no telling where that game can go.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Arizona is the close. And I thought there for a while the Giants game would be over, but it seemed like just talent kind of late for the Giants certainly took over. One more thing on offense. Your thoughts on Pollard this season? A really underrated piece, and him and even Deuce Vaughn had a very good game. I mean, this was something else that was just very frustrating as a Jets fan watching, is something that's always hurt the Jets last year and even 2 weeks into this season. The weakness of this defense is the dink and dunk, stopping the run, stopping the running backs, sometimes the linebackers in coverage. Your thoughts on the Cowboys' ability to hit the running backs, hit guys like Pollard, obviously Deuce Vaughn as well, hit those guys kind of on those short check down passes and pick up some big yards from those guys.
I'm liking what I'm seeing from the backs. I'm liking what McCarthy is doing with the backs, because as I stated earlier, we were getting away from what helps Dak, which is basically letting the game come to him, taking the check downs, the easy passes to get Dak into a rhythm. So Kellen Moore, the last few years, he really got away from the screen game as far as the backs and dumping off to the backs, using them more as pass blockers. I'm liking that we're getting our running backs very involved, because it's an extra receiver for us, and it's a difficult look for the defense to have to adjust and bring out maybe a nickel or, stretch the linebackers out. So as far as we continue to use our backs in our offense and create plays and, give Dak a helping hand on third down, second down, where he's not forcing balls, I really feel like this offense can be more explosive than they are right now.
Yeah, certainly. I was looking at Pollard, going into this game as one of those underrated pieces. Had a very under the radar 1,000-yard season last year where he averaged over 5 yards a carry. And it just seemed like it kind of got lost in the mix with everything. And obviously Cowboys, America's team, like Dak's the big story. McCarthy was the big story. Jerry Jones is always a big story. So sometimes you get lost, sometimes gets lost in the mixes. Those other guys that are making impacts that aren't as big of names. But Pollard's extremely talented, a very young, up-and-coming guy that has a lot of potential and finally gets that full potential now being the legitimate number one there. Just quickly, one more thing on the defense for Dallas. Your early impressions from Gilmore 2 games into his Dallas tenure.
I love it. It is such a help for Trayvon Diggs to basically just take the weight off his shoulders. Last year we had some guys that are kind of questionable out there on that island. But right now, it's either throw at Diggs, throw at Gilmore, both for all pros, both for pro bowlers, great defenders, great in the run game. So it's definitely a lot of help. And again, like I was saying, Dan Quinn has so much more versatility now with the safeties where he can bring Javon Curse up into the box
Yep.
and we can run a lot more one high. We can blitz a lot more and leave the corners on those islands to cover because they're great. He's been a boost. I was so excited when we signed him. So hopefully he stays healthy. Our defense stays healthy, and we just continue to thrive and give offense the problems.
Yep, certainly. And you mentioned, stacking the box. Teams are going to continue to do that with Zach, and it's going to force us to continue to try and run. It's going to force you to throw because you're going to stack the box. It's going to cause you to. It's going to be tough to run the ball. And I don't know why Brees only had 4 carries. In Sunday's game, which was certainly questionable. I mean, what were your thoughts on that? That to me, just that might have been one of the most frustrating things I think I came away from this game. Was one of the best. I mean, you want to put the young label on him, that's fine, but I don't even consider him one of the best young players in the league. I would still consider him one of the best running backs in the league when he's fully healthy. We saw it last year, and we even saw it in week 1. What were your thoughts just from an outside fan perspective of him only getting 4 carries? I mean, it's almost like one of these other teams limiting their number one. And I understand he's on a pitch count, but to at least not give him 10 to 12 carries was, to me, just I didn't understand it.
I don't understand it myself. I'm watching the game and I understand that the run game struggled, but in order to help Zach out, they have to get the run game going. And 4
Yep.
carries from your best back is just not going to cut it, regardless of how bad the offense is looking running the ball or
Yep.
how well the defense is, defending the run. You have to continue to get your playmakers the ball, and maybe if that's outside zone or we run some toss plays here and there, just anything to get the offense flowing and take the weight off of Zach Wilson. I feel like he could have had more touches as far as we're talking about Hall. Dalvin Cook, despite the fumble, he could have had more touches. There was a lot of different things, the Jets could have did in order to help Zach out, but taking the ball out of the hands of your playmakers, it's not going to help him moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I would like to see more of McCole Harmon as well. I mean, he got 14 snaps, and they all came late in the fourth quarter with only 1 a week ago. A guy with a struggling quarterback, you want to run some of those gadget plays, jet sweep, try to infuse some speed and some energy into your offense that lacks it right now. That would be something that I think certainly you got to try out in the coming weeks here against New England. So just to quickly wrap up here on Dallas, and then we'll get to kind of just a general overview for the rest of the way from your perspective for the Jets. What are you expecting the rest of the way from this Dallas Cowboys team? Do you believe in the hype? Do you believe this team is as good as it's shown? Obviously, I think they're a really good team. They're not going to probably win 40-0 and 30-10 every week, but do you see this team being a legitimate 12-13 win team and maybe giving the Eagles a strong push towards maybe taking over Philly for the division this year, which I don't think many saw coming before the season?
Absolutely. If they stay healthy, the sky is the limit for this Cowboys team. As long as we're not turning the ball over and the defense is continuing to play well. Right now, we're only allowing 5 points per game. This is the NFL. That's not going to last too long. You got San Francisco here in 2 weeks. We got a Chargers team coming up that's pretty good offensively.
Yep.
So I feel like the defense, as long as they're continuing to connect and click defense, I feel like there's no worries. As far as the offense doing well between 20 and 20. It's that red zone where they're really going to need some improvement. I know that game was kind of out of reach early on, but still getting to the red zone and only having like a touchdown or two to show for it, that's not going to do much when you get into Philly twice a year and you get into San Francisco and those other teams. I feel like if the offense gets clicking and stay consistent, definitely can be looking at 12-13, maybe even 14 wins.
Yeah, you're spot on, especially with the red zone stuff too. Certainly something they can get cleaned up to take it to another level. But yeah, I mean, they've looked like the best team in football. I mean, I don't think there's much of an argument there to make. Maybe you can say, Miami's look really good, but obviously, but in terms of just 2 dominant victories, Dallas has been all over those with the 40-0 and now 30-10. And then from a Jet perspective, I mean, from my standpoint, this week in my eyes is a must win. You got to take care of New England. 14 straight losses. Try not to make it 15. I mean, the last time you beat them was 2015. New England's not a good team. You got to start fast. New England started slow 2 games in a row. Mac Jones isn't good. Even with Zach Wilson, you should be able to go out there and find a way to muster up 17 to 20 points. And this defense should be a lot better. You're not facing the Cowboys. You're facing Mac Jones and the Patriots. I mean, this is a team in terms of talent that is significantly, the drop off is significant, and you're at home as well. It's so important because after this, you have Kansas City. That's probably a loss. You can't drop to 1-3 with this quarterback situation. Do you view that being the same? And how is your general overview for the rest of the way for this Jet team with Zach Wilson? Or how long do you think Zach Wilson's going to last? Will he be the guy, or do you see them maybe making a trade or signing?
Right now, I believe he's going to be the guy, and they're going to give him a few weeks. They might give him 6 or 7 weeks, but if he doesn't get it clicking, they're going to have to turn somewhere else. I've heard some names floating around, just from the talk shows. Kirk Cousins, popped up. A few different guys that popped up for the Jets, but I hate to say going into week 3 that this game against the Patriots will make or break the season, but it feels like it's a make or break.
Yeah.
Buffalo game really helped out because that gives you one in the division. If you can go, 2 games in the division with wins, now you have Buffalo another time, Miami twice. You don't want to fall too far behind, especially with the schedule for the Jets. You're looking at Kansas City, like you said. You're looking at Philly. This is a tough schedule. So I just feel like as far as the Jets, again, they have to find something to help Zach Wilson out. You build from the first 2 games. There's some things he did well against Buffalo, some games like things he did well against Dallas. And you have to find that middle ground offensively and defensively to help Zach Wilson out. The less he's on the field, and I'm not saying, he's a bad quarterback or anything, but in the situation he's in with how the offensive line is looking and he's not really gelling well with the weapons, the less he's on the field, the better.
Yep, definitely. You're totally right about that. And as you mentioned, it's like you've seen some positive against Buffalo. You saw a little bit against Dallas. You just got to wait for him to put it all together. Ideally, you get the run game going up against New England. I hate calling it, as you mentioned, I hate calling must wins in week 3 because you have 14 weeks to go. A must win should not be week 3. I think must wins start to maybe kick in till the middle of the season, especially if you're 2-3 and 5 and you're in a potential situation to fall 3-4 games under 500. Then those are more must wins. But the reality is, if you want to look at it from a glass half full, if you win this week, you're 2-1. You have 2 wins in the division. And even though it's kind of seemed like we should be 0-2 right now, if you have 2 wins in the division, that's obviously super important. So we'll see how it all plays out. Dallas obviously got a really strong chance to make a deep playoff push this year. And as for the Jets, you kind of hope they can get in that around the 9-10. Zach Wilson's competent, and they find a way to sneak in, and anything's possible after that. So to kind of close things out, where can everybody find you? Your social media, obviously you're a writer as well. So where can everybody find your sports content and your posts and all that good stuff?
If you like to follow me on Twitter, it's LWOSDCooley6. Again, that's Twitter of X. On Instagram, cool.ykg if you like to follow me on there. Those are the 2 I really use the most. So either one of those, keep up with my work and see what, I got going on, really covering a bunch of different teams, not really Dallas focused. So whoever you like, if you like to read up on your team, follow me on one of those and you can see what I got to say.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, enjoyed connecting with you so far through the obviously LWS, and looking forward to continually see how the rest of the season unfolds. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a lot of fun talking Jets, Cowboys. Dallas heads to Arizona, and the Jets. Well, Dallas is on the road for that, right? Or are they home? I think they're road, right?
I think we're on the road.
You road, yes. Jets get back home for 2. Dallas hits the road in Arizona. We'll see how both things play out this week. So that'll do it for an episode of In the Trench with Gangrene. Stay tuned for a lot more content coming your way. And as always, hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for listening.